Hello everybody, welcome back to the 1% Better Recruitment Podcast. I'm your host Charles Kiriakou. In this week's episode, I'm joined by Ryan Collett from SThree. Now, Ryan's been at SThree for 16 years. He's learned an absolute shed load in that time, and he shares about his experience through his time working at SThree with the people he's trained up, he's coached and worked with all throughout the years. And one of the key topics of debate in this episode was, is a recruiter just a good recruiter because they bill good numbers? Or can you get a really good recruiter who isn't necessarily astronomical on the numbers, but is still a good recruiter, if that makes sense? So we talk a lot about that. We talk a lot about what the patterns are that he's noticed through his career around what makes a good recruiter. One of the key themes here was discipline and consistency. We talk about how to have a competitive advantage in today's market. We talked a lot about utilizing case studies and testimonials in your business development strategy. But honestly, this episode is jam-packed full of what I call 1% nuggets for you guys. Whether you're a recruiter, trainee, manager, senior, founder, whatever it is, there's so much value in this episode and I really enjoyed it. So big shout out to Ryan for coming on this week's episode. People that are returning, or if this is the first time you listen to the podcast, please do us a massive favour. If it's on Spotify or Apple, follow, give us a little rating if you like the show. And of course, if you're on YouTube, a like, a subscribe, a comment always really helps grow this channel out. So anyway, that's enough from me. Let's get into this week's episode. I hope you enjoy and let's get straight into it. Hello everybody, welcome back to the 1% Better Recruitment Podcast with your host Charles Kiriakou. Today I'm joined by Ryan Collett from SThree. Ryan, thank you very much for joining us on the show today. How are we?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you.
Good. So Ryan has been at SThree for 16 years, started off as a trainee and is now a sales director. He's hiring within his team, and we've been speaking back and forth over the last couple of months or so about doing the podcast together. And yeah, genuinely, like some of the topics we're going to go through today, I think is going to add so much value to both recruiters, trainees, billing managers, founders, the whole spectrum in the recruitment industry. So there's some really interesting topics I'm very passionate about. Before we do so, Ryan, as you know, I always ask my guests to give us a brief sort of introduction. Obviously 16 years at SThree. Talk us through your journey, mate.
Yeah, cool. So I started as a trainee recruitment consultant back in 2010, I think it was. I think I actually failed my work sample on the first attempt, and I begged a rec to give me another shot. And yeah, it's almost like the rest is history. But I probably had quite a very up and down kind of career over them 16 years, as most people in recruitment know. It's not just a straight line. So yeah, started in the Leeds office. I still work in the Leeds office today. Work predominantly within the tech space, but then I did have about 5 years where I went and built a life sciences division and did some kind of UK embedded technology sector lead roles. Predominantly all my time has been spent kind of working and building the Leeds business alongside obviously my fellow directors. And yeah, really proud of where we got to. And yeah, a few more stories along the way, which I'm sure we'll probably tap into.
Yeah, absolutely. So you mentioned that you did life science for a bit, and what you just predominantly sort of tech now, do you do?
Yeah, so obviously SThree is global workforce consultancy. We've got multiple brands. So Computer Future is our tech brand, and that's what the majority of the Leeds office is made up of. We did set up Real Life Sciences, and we did that for around about 5 or 6 years, but we decided to kind of invest back heavily into technology. So we do some technology through our Computer Futures and Progressive brands within there. But my background was software development. That's what my first market was. Then did a bit of embedded technology. Then I moved to set up that other life sciences business. But now the Leeds focus is becoming famous within the technology space within the markets that we work.
Yeah. So a lot of people listening to this will know who SThree are, right? SThree, one of the biggest recruitment businesses. Some people might go, okay, they might be Googling like who SThree are and kind of how big they are. So just give us a bit of an understanding of like, obviously you're predominantly in the Leeds office, right? So like how big is the Leeds function in the UK? Like how many people, like, because from when we've spoken, there's so many different decision makers and people like stakeholders, etc. When we've been speaking. So just give us a bit of an understanding of that. Hey guys, quick one before we jump back into the episode. If you are a recruiter who feels like half your week disappears into admin, follow-ups, data cleaning and jumping between several different tools, then listen up because this episode is officially sponsored by Sourcewell. Sourcewell is the recruitment productivity platform, and I don't just mean another tool that you'll forget to use. I mean the tool that actually gives you your time back. You can run your entire desk in one place. outreach, sourcing, data enrichment, multi-step email and LinkedIn sequences, inbox management, and even call notes. It's all there, synced, automated, and according to their stats, recruiters using Sourcewell see 56% higher response rates, double the pipeline, and approximately save around 8 hours of admin every single week. If you're like me, admin as a recruiter is the devil, and this productivity platform really helps you save a load of time. So reach out to Sourcewell, go to sourcewell.com. It's a fantastic platform. I've used it myself. I really believe in it, and I'm super grateful for them sponsoring the podcast. Let's get back into the episode.
So they're through Leeds, Manchester, Birmingham, and London. They're the main hubs, and then obviously globally, we're kind of spread across the globe: US, Europe, Japan, within there. But unlike I think a lot of other businesses that maybe work in the UK and there were other markets within Leeds, we just focus on the northern markets predominantly. Do some UK-based markets, but a lot of the work that we do is just UK because we have other offices elsewhere which kind of cover the US and Europe, etc. From there. So yeah, it's a big, it's a big company. You get lots of support because of that. We have a lot of resources available. But yeah, for me, it is one of them standouts. But because we have like that brand strategy, which I know other recruitment firms do as well, sometimes people don't recognise SThree maybe as that main brand because we go out from, say, Computer Futures in Leeds.
Yeah, makes sense. Cool. So look, as I mentioned at the start, the topics we're going to talk about in this episode, I'm really passionate about. And the first thing that we said that we were going to speak about was what makes a good recruiter and what makes a good biller. And I've always had the opinion that someone that bills big numbers isn't necessarily like a good recruiter. And that might be for some people listening, they might just scratch their head and go, Charles, what are you on about? Like if you're doing good numbers, you're a good recruiter. But I've seen some recruiters that bill decent numbers, not like crazy numbers, but they're just phenomenal at their job. They deliver such a great service and they're just really good with people. And there are some people that they're just amazing at finding a square peg for square holes. They're just unbelievable at finding the right person and knowing where companies are hiring, etc., etc. So as someone that's worked with hundreds, if not thousands of recruiters in your time at SThree, what do you think makes? Let's start with what makes a good recruiter, because as I said, I think there's a difference. From your experience, what do you think makes a good recruiter?
Number one is always going to be communication. I think that's like the key thing because communication underpins like the service that you're offering to your candidates, to your clients, how you're perceived out there in the market. Because, like I say, good recruiter for me, if you work a vertical market, and that's what we do in SThree. You have a very fine sliver, and that is your world, your network to go build. And I think that's what the best recruiters do. They understand the market. If anything, they add value into that network. That's what the good people do. And then when they engage with people, it's the little things sometimes of like, following up with a candidate regularly, just checking in and say, listen, there isn't any up there, but I gave you a ring to tell you that, for example, as opposed to just not speaking to them. I always think if you can be the person giving the information, plus people chasing you, that's worth its weight in gold sometimes compared to some of the horror stories that you hear within there. And just understanding what makes people tick within your given vertical, I think is really key, or your industry that you focus with. From that, and then can advise and kind of consult. And I think that's when I look back at myself. I used to go out to customers and I was called a recruitment consultant, and I always really prided myself on that my job is to consult you, not just to come in and fill a vacancy. I should be giving you some insights and giving you my viewpoint, whether you interview 3 candidates and you like candidate A. If I think candidate B is the best person, I should be the one to kind of say, well, actually, I think, he's more committed. He's worked with me before. He's a trusted pair of hands. That for me has been really consultative, and that's been a good recruiter, as opposed to maybe being the biller who, like you say, can just find anyone. I think any recruiter is going to have like a knack for a CV, right? I think as you get experience, you can look at a CV and go, is that person right for that role? Is that person a good candidate? And can gauge that on the call as soon as possible. For me, that's the key, is communication to build relationships. It's really very different, maybe because we're kind of geographically based, but I think the good recruiters go out and meet people in person as well. Like, it's something I'm super passionate part. It's like the heart of my strategy is
Hmm.
face-to-face engagement, because that's how you're going to build a proper relationship. Um, I think that's the thing. If you can be a recruiter who's not seen as a recruiter, I think you're a good recruiter.
Mm. Yeah, I quite like that. I think that your first point on communication. I'm working with this recruiter at the moment who hasn't had any business development training, and um, you would love this type of person. They just have that willingness to get on the phone, go out and meet people. They want to do it, but they just don't know the tactics to deploy. They don't know how to deal with certain objections, etc. And one of the little strategies that we put in place in the early days for his BD strategy was identifying what I call the long term and short term, right? So your long term are customers that aren't hiring now, but hire in your space. You want to build a relationship with them. And then the customers that you want to build relationships with that are currently hiring. And we were talking through like generating leads from candidates. Now, I'd like to get your opinion on how you potentially go around this, but he was struggling. Like, I was quite cheeky with this. I said, I'm not going to tell you how to deal with the objection, right? Because I don't want to practice the objection when you've not had it yet. So I'm going to tell you a way of getting it. Go out and try and get those leads from the candidates, and then come back to me next week and then tell me what you've struggled with, i.e., the objections. So obviously, come back the second session and gone like, oh my God, they just don't want to tell me where they're interviewing. Lo and behold, it's literally, Ryan, where are you interviewing? Don't feel comfortable telling you. Fair enough. Like, that's how most recruiters do it, right? So I said, okay, well, first time you speak to someone, it's going to be quite difficult because you've not offered anything to them. You don't have any value to offer them. There's not a job there. You've not given them an update. So
Yeah,
what you said around giving candidates updates for the sake of an update, like just keeping in touch with them, that in itself is building the first layer of that foundation of the relationship, right? So we pulled up this list of all these candidates that he'd spoken to, asked for where they're interviewing, and they said they had interviews but didn't want to tell him. And basically, what we did is like, okay, cool. We're going to start calling these people, and you've already generated through your AI platforms loads of companies. Like, you've scraped companies that are hiring. You've found other interview leads from other people. Call them up. Let them know that these types of businesses are hiring. That you want to take their profile to market. That's a bit of value, all right? They're going to appreciate you've given them an update, because let's be real, most recruiters don't do the follow up, right? They don't have a
yeah,
job. I'll call them when I've got a job. And I'm telling you now, if it's not that call, the second, third, fourth, or fifth call, they're going to be more comfortable. They'll have that level of trust, that relationship, and go, do you know what, Ryan? I'll tell you what. Do you know a company called Venom? Yeah, I've had an interview with them for a software developer role. So
yeah,
that's something I've gone through with that guy. What's your thoughts?
yeah, 100%. I think if you're trying to get everything off the first call, like, I've been, like I said, 15 years. When we first started, probably like just trying to get that information on the first call, etc. Now, like, we work in the contract space, right? So I work in the contract space. So these guys are used to dealing with recruiters. They'll straight away think, are you fishing for information? So exactly what you said there. For me, we have this thing that I train probably week two, maybe three with everybody. And I always, whenever I go back to somebody who go, what you struggle with, it's just give and take. It's just like call it give and take structure. You've got to give some information, take some back. You can't just go take, 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 take. And that could be where you're interviewing. That could just be some industry insights, some information, an event. I've seen this event I'm going to. Have you got any that you've seen that might be interesting, etc.? Give some information to take it, no matter how small it is. And I think sometimes we have a lot of information, we have a lot of knowledge, but we don't showcase that very well to a contractor or to a client. We just immediately think that they know we know everything. So yeah, it's just being patient as well, and hopefully get to that point where there's trust there. I suppose sometimes, I find it can be very rare that for me, leads from candidates are great, but there's also an element that they're not, because if you get a lead from a candidate, that means they're already in process, they're already working with recruiters. So for you to break down that does be very, very difficult anyway. Like, so the best kind of leads are ones where nobody knows about. Do you know what I mean? So but that piece of information you might not be able to do anything with it now. But the next time they hire, you know what they look for, you know the types of candidates. That's where the valuable information comes from, particularly in contract, when not everybody hires contracts. It's very rare that you speak to a contract they're interviewing. You can wedge your way in there, for example. And I just played a long game with the candidate. And same thing, how I kind of do it is we call something called we call avenues to market. Basically, one of the tactics we have where you
Mm.
meet a candidate, we would share all of our customers that we work with and saying which ones are of interest for you. Can we create opportunities? Do you know any other contractors within those businesses or worked with anybody from there? And if you're giving all that information, it's really simple that I would say, I'm going to work you as a project. And that entails this is what I'm going to do for you. I'm going to go speak to probably between 50 and 100 businesses and hiring managers about your profile. All these businesses. If I'm going to do that for you, is there any way you want me to avoid? Because you're actually going to go spend that time doing it. And they probably don't understand that to speak to those 50, 100 people, it's probably 500 dials. It's probably going to be a 2-week project to do that. And yeah, if they do tell that information, like I said, it's very unlikely you're going to be able to do anything with it right there, right then, because they're already in process. All right. But if it doesn't work out for whatever reason, all that company's going to be hiring again, at least you know the type of people that they hire.
Yeah. And what you said a second ago about patience, right? I like when I was a recruiter, I definitely had that element. I was very much long-term minded. I didn't really do an awful lot of the lead chasing. It was only until 2021 where my market started to reopen and I shifted markets and I was like, right, I need jobs now. And my boss sat me down and was like, you're not doing any lead gen, you're not doing any lead chasing, you're just doing the relationship building, which is great. But where we need business now in a new market, you need to do more short-term BD. So with that patience in mind, what I would do is exactly what you were saying is if a company was hiring and had that candidate in process with like 2 or 3 other people, in my mind, I wasn't like expecting to get that job on right there and then. My mindset was, I want to prove value to this customer. I want to build the relationship with them and make them realize that I'm not just another recruiter that's going to be a CV slinger. I'm going to provide value. I'm going to show other testimonials from other businesses and competitors of theirs that I've worked with, etc. And more often than not, once I actually dug and used my probing questions and they go, oh, we've already got 5 people in process. And actually, the 5 people they do have in process, they're not great. And it's like, okay, so if all 5 of these candidates don't go to the next stage, where are you at then? Oh, we'll go back to square one. Okay. And then what's the cost on the business if you have to go back to square one if this role's been open for 2 months? Well, lose market share, all this kind of thing. Okay, cool. So what would your thoughts be on maybe seeing another candidate that, on paper could be a really good fit and knowing full well that they've been vetted and they're actually going to be a good fit because I've worked with your competitors? Yeah, why not? Okay, we're happy to see. So then sometimes what you can do is you can sneak a candidate in there. They go, wow, this person's really good. You might get a deal with that company. Again, not with every single customer, but then you've built the relationship with that client. It's not just a quick transaction. It's especially the companies that I would try and target weren't just one hire a year. It was like companies that really had aspirations to grow and things like that. Hey guys, very quick one from me. If you know me or if you've been listening to this show, you know that coaching is a huge passion of mine. The only problem with what I do is I can only coach one person at a time. And even if I'm working in an office and I'm doing desk side call coaching with someone, I'll hear little bits of what people are saying on the phone, but I can't really necessarily hear what the candidate or the client is saying. And I found that really, really stressful. And I found that there's not really a sustainable way to scale what I do. And that's why I partnered with Naz Harrison, who's also another trainer, and we built a product called Milo. And Milo essentially is your own personalized digital sales coach. Now, the product will be coming out to the market very, very soon. So if you are interested in having essentially someone like me, an expert recruitment trainer with a ton of recruitment experience, sat by your side helping you on every single sales call, anywhere in the world, all at the same time, anytime, then it's definitely worth you reaching out. We're starting our early access group very soon. And for people that join our early access group, you're going to get preferential founder pricing. You're going to have an input in our version 1 of the product that comes to the market later this year. It's a very exciting time. And as you know, you must have heard me talking about our investment journey. That came through end of May, I believe, start of June. So we're at a real crucial time now. And we've got a ton of customers that are very interested in joining the early access group. But we want to be very specific with who we work with. So if you would be interested in joining us for the early access group and testing out Milo, get in touch with me today. All the details will be in the description of this episode. But anyway, that's enough from me. Let's get straight back to the episode.
Yeah, 100%. And that's the kind of thing for me is like in contracts in particular, if you've got a good relationship with that contractor, if they go into the business, all right, and they get that role, and you're the one that no matter what, you've still been trying to help them secure a different role, you've always kept them up to date, they'll still remember that. So when they go into that business and the manager goes, how was your experience with your current agent? And I go, yeah, it was good. All right. Actually, it was this guy who always kept me in the loop, always kept me in touch, had really good industry knowledge, generally felt he was working for me. Then they might even recommend you into that hiring manager, which is a great place to be. And I think from a contract perspective, yeah, normally people are hiring for projects, so there might be other areas for you, your colleagues, etc. that you can get in there. And you don't want to be going in kind of burning bridges or anything like that. I think one of the best things we've done before is if that's a candidate we really, really know, because we call like gold candidates, like somebody that
Yeah,
you back, you've reference checked, everyone in the market sings the praises. We'd probably just message a line manager saying, "I know you're interviewing John. By the way, don't know whether your agency sent you these references before, but we've already placed him before. He's a great guy. Good luck. It sounds like you're going to get a great guy if he accepts."
Mm.
And then like, all right, cool. Well, yeah, we're not trying to sneak away. We're actually just promoting that good candidate getting the role. I then also work with loads of other people like John, and actually people who know John. So I'm in that network. So I think even if you're hiring again, I can add some value with loads of connections as opposed to just CVs of skills. It's really getting involved in that network of people.
Yeah. What have you seen the really good recruiters do when it comes to building out like a new desk or like a cold market? Like they're starting something from scratch. Sorry. Like what do you see like the really good recruiters do with that?
Um, I think the first thing is just really get to know and act like a 5-year-old. You know, explain, explain me this in layman's terms, like how, because we work tech markets, right? None of us can write code, all right, but with Claude and stuff, there's obviously opportunities to do that, but even still, you don't understand what's going on. So it's just going and really understanding what that person does, where they fit into the wider business. So you've got that credibility piece as well, that you know a little bit technically, you know enough.
Hmm.
And I think I'm always like that, get yourself immersed in it. So I just like drew things out, so visual. I draw things out and go, right, so that tech, where does that fit? Is that front end? Is that back end? Is that a server? Is it a database? How
Mm.
does it all connect? I think when you're first starting out, it's just being a little bit naive, not going in, I'm this expert all the time. It's kind of going in and saying, listen, I am new to this. And I learned that because I've worked 2, 3, probably 4 different markets in my time as a consultant and a manager. Well, as a manager, probably, picked up lots of other things. But
Sure.
it's just going in and going, listen, I'm not the technical expert here. Can you just explain that to me in a bit more detail?
Mm.
I think that's it. And I think the other thing would be probably setting themselves up and being really organized. And that sounds a really like basic thing, but if you have structure and process, all right, that you know you're going to follow if you start in a desk from scratch, if you've worked in recruitment before, it makes it miles easier. You know exactly where you're going to, you can like feel like you're making progress against something,
Mm.
which when you're first starting out from scratch can be quite difficult because the end goal is to do loads of placements, right? But you got to think about, right, how do I get there and work backwards to what those little milestones would be, which might
Yeah.
be right. Identify 50 of the best candidates in that market. Can I meet, I don't know, 50% of those guys? Yeah. Can I get a
Yeah.
referral to the best person they've ever worked with as well? And I think people who build the desk from almost like osmosis, so they start with something and grow it out, as opposed to trying to just do stuff at random, normally do better. And that's probably the smartest approach to do it.
Mm. When you said act like a 5-year-old, I was thinking back to 5-year-old Charles. I was like, don't act like 5-year-old Charles because he's a little menace.
Yeah, well,
But
I've got a 4-year-old, yeah, and getting him out of bed to nursery is difficult. So maybe
but
not
you're
quite like that. Tantrums.
But your analogy around like, being that young, like that's a good example. My nephew's 8, right? So he is just the most curious little boy in the entire world. Like, what's that? How does that work? Just there's no ego, is there? Like with kids that age, there's no ego because they everything to them is new. And I love that because I'm trying to think who it was. I did my friend Adam Holt's podcast. He's based up in the north, and he asked me a similar question around what I think makes a good recruiter. And my first thing was pretty much exactly that. It's that innate curiosity. It's like you don't necessarily to be an expert in software development, in life sciences, in medical technology. You will be an expert in recruiting in that space the longer you've done it and the more success you've had. But there was a guy that was on the podcast called Martin Crapper, and he does the electronics market. And I might be butchering what he actually said, but he said along the lines of the questions that he asks candidates and clients is, what does the tech do? How do you build it? Who buys it or who uses it, and what's the function or the tech? So along those lines, very basic, open questions. And his rule is like once you get an understanding of okay, what is the tech, then you just probe a couple of times into that because you might just get a high level answer. It might be a bit technical, but it's basically just removing your ego for a second and being like putting your hands up and saying, I'm not an expert in this. And I think especially, I don't know if you've seen this, but there are some recruitment agencies that get trainee consultants to put a year experience. So they'll start on like July 1st, but then it will be like July 1st, 2025, which is, by the way, in my eyes, that's mental because they want people in the market to see them as not a trainee. Lean into it, man. Like, lean
Yeah,
into it. Like,
yeah,
if I was a trainee again today, I would lean into it. Speaking to candidates and clients, people respect the honesty, in my opinion.
yeah, 100%. Like, and that's the thing. Like, if you speak to a candidate and say, "Listen, I'm new to this. Can you help me?" Right? And everyone likes to help people. Do you know what I
It's
mean?
an
And
innate
like,
human thing. It's
it's
true.
innate human thing to say, "Listen, would you mind helping me out on this and just explaining that to me?" And draw. I used to go with a pad and pen. Yeah, we didn't have laptops to take out, so like, whatever you just said there, could you draw it for me? Because I'm so visual, and that's how I
Mm.
understood it. Um, and yeah, you're obviously going to get the your candidate who's just not interested. Just ring me when you've got a job, right? We hear that loads, right? Cool, that's fine. Just put them in a bucket, but don't let that define like that as everyone else, because majority of people kind of see the two. I think, listen, if I can understand what you do and I can understand it better, that makes me more credible with the clients, candidates can match which one's most relevant for you. In the long run, I'll be much more valuable to you because I understand it. So can you help me with that? And majority of the time, like I said, I'd probably say 90% of the time, people are happy to help you out. But the key thing is not just being a nodding dog. Yeah, 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 yeah. If you don't understand, sorry, can you explain to me? And I
Yeah.
think it depends on your market, right? Well, that's probably really key because I've done electronics and embedded, and the great thing about that market and medical devices, right, is you have a physical product at the end of it.
Yeah.
You can see it. You can go to the website. You can see
Yeah.
what it looks like, what they've been building, or we all know, like, we all been in a car, so we can imagine, oh, this is the dashboard that they
Yeah.
created or whatever. When you're dealing in tech and like me and you can see the Zoom call, but we have no idea what's going on behind it to
Yeah.
make it
Yeah.
all work, that can sometimes be difficult. But you just got to be curious. You've got to find like that passion for what you do. And I think passion for me, like the number one thing that will make a good recruiter. I probably didn't say that earlier, but 100% would be because if you can immerse yourself into it and you are super passionate, you'll immediately trump somebody who's a better recruiter but just doesn't have the passion.
Yeah, you
All
can
right.
just sense the passion from someone when you're speaking to someone on the phone. They're talking about their product, their service, their offering. You can tell someone that's just someone sat in a call center going, "Yep, so for this price, for this month, da, da, da," versus someone that's like fully immersed and fully passionate. When I
Yeah.
did medical devices, I started off doing like RAQA, R&D, and
Yeah.
I didn't really like understand it. I didn't really have much of a passion. And then when there was a spot at the surgical desk, like surgical sales reps, I was like, well, I love sales. I've always wanted to do sales. I'm doing sales. And I've been in hospital. Like my mum's had tons of surgeries, and like she was going for a knee replacement at the time. And like one of my colleagues gave me a job to work, which was like knee replacement devices. I was like, this is really cool because I'm at home with my mum researching knee implants. I was like, this is so cool. So I'm doing all that research, speaking to candidates, getting them to educate me on the market. And then I pulled one of my first ever jobs that I pulled like 360 was within urology. And it was one of my first proper client meetings. And he sat me down and basically educated me on the ins and outs of the urology space. And the thing that like really stuck with me to this day was that he was explaining the different types of industries in within medical devices in terms of alcohol, which sounds bloody mental. But he was like, the urologists are the types of people that you can have a pint of ale with and watch the rugby. The
Yeah.
orthopedics, so the carpenters of the industry, they're like champagne. The cardiologists feel like they're gods, and it's nothing but Dom Perignon. And when he said that, I was like, yeah, I think I'm going to stick to urology because I'm not a Dom Perignon kind of guy.
Yeah.
And the great thing about the urology market was, pardon the pun, but you can take the piss, right? You're trying to have a formal conversation with a national sales manager or a VP of sales or a CEO of a startup, and there's literally prosthetic willies all around the stand. So it's like you can't really be that serious when you've got a literal like penile implant that's inflating by itself and an electrical mechanism behind them. It's like you're having a conversation around pain points of hiring, and there's a willy going whoop 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 like that. I was like, this is brilliant. This fits my personality because I can be a little bit jokey with these guys, and then like I said, they like to take the piss a little bit. So I think
Yeah.
it's also like I feel bad sometimes when like you see recruiters that get into a market that they have no interest in, and it's difficult, isn't it, to like try and find a passion for something when it's just really boring for you. It's tough,
Yeah.
isn't it?
Yeah. And you've got to make it exciting. Like that's the key thing. Like I always tell the story of when I was when I joined. Yeah, well, how old was I? About 21. So like my group of friends, all kind of just local, mainly from my football team, right? So you had two or three went to uni, some who dropped out, some who were just electricians in the trade, all that, and that's who I hung around with. And like, they go and watch the Champions League on a Tuesday and a Wednesday night. But I just I just immerse myself in my job, my market, and like Monday to Friday, nobody speaks to me. It's still to this day, like not many people speak to me Monday to Friday, barring on the WhatsApps. On a Friday, my best mate rings me, right, what we're doing at the weekend. That's been the case like 15 years. And that's because like on the train home, I had a 11-minute train ride home every day. I had a choice. I can flick through Facebook back in the day. All right. There's a lot more distractions now. Or I can try and learn something. So I used to read Computer Weekly, right? Because I was, if I'm going to be involved in this, I'm going to be interested in it. But you've got to want to do it. You've got to find the love and the passion for it. Because at the end of the day, if it's going to make you more placements, more money, more career progression, then it's worthwhile. That little trade-off, 10 minutes every day. And I remember spotting a little bit about technology that actually I did really well out of, because I saw like when iPhones are coming and flash technology wouldn't work on iPhones, it always going to HTML5. I was like, I was in that wave early doors,
Yeah.
and I started planting loads of seeds because of that. And then I did really well out of JavaScript technology because of that. But I wouldn't have seen that if I wasn't reading Computer Week every night. Do you know what I mean? I was looking at
100%.
Facebook and stuff. So it is like really becoming dedicated and passionate about what you're trying to
Yeah.
do. And yeah, I do believe that if you don't love the market you work, go try and find one that you do. Because you'll probably do better at. Like, I'm a massive
100%.
Daniel Priestley fan. I don't know if you read the book Key Person of Influence.
No, I've heard of it though. I've heard of it.
Yeah, really good book. And yeah, just in there, that's where that line kind of comes from. He just talks, if you want to be a key person of influence within a market or whatever you want to do, number one, have passion, right? And be really interested, because
Yeah.
that's worth its weight in gold versus somebody who just isn't,
Yeah,
you know.
I couldn't agree with you more. Like when I was a recruiter, to your example about if you're in a market and you're not really that passionate about it, I did social care for about 4, 5 months maybe. And I
Yeah.
remember like it was only like a mile away from my house or something. And I remember coming home every day and my mum was like, it's obviously back in the day when I used to live at home, and my mum was like, you're coming home every day, like not, you wanted to get into recruitment and you just don't seem happy. And I was like, I just don't really enjoy speaking to like social workers that are taking kids out of parents' homes because they're being abused. It's not really enjoying it. And because, like I said, like I was in and out of hospital with my mum and like grandparents and stuff like that, and I saw what the nurses were doing, and I was like, I remember the apprenticeship company said there was a nursing recruitment role, but it was £150 a week. It's like it's not a lot of money. And then obviously one thing led to another with that company. I ended up moving on from them, took that job with next to no money, but did nursing recruitment on a cold desk. And like the first ever client meeting I had going into a private hospital, meeting the matron, showing me around the ward, and then like getting more of an understanding of actually what does a nurse do for their 12-hour shift, meeting the nurses and stuff. And I was like, this is incredible. Like these people, they deserve all the bloody money in the world. And as a contract recruiter, my little, I guess, pitch was I can get you double the money. So I had
Yeah.
this passion of like every call is like, I know how much money you're on because it's on the NHS website. I'll get you double the money being contract, whether it's in private or whatever it might be. And I just fully immerse myself. And to your point earlier around face to face, like that was something we built that desk. I built any desk I've worked on. It's always been trying to do that face to face piece. And even to this day, mate, like we set up an AI company like 6 months ago. I barely even used AI. I
Yeah.
just about used ChatGPT, and that was about it. Like basically a Google. But now I'm like on Instagram. I've just followed loads of AI things on TikTok as well. Watching loads of podcasts just to get myself immersed in it. Because if I'm going to try and educate people on why to use an AI product, I don't necessarily need to be an expert. I'm not a tech person, but I need to have a bit of information and have some value that I can offer people as well. So to your point, mate, about immersing yourself in the sector and having passion, I could not agree with you more.
Yeah. That's it. I think, when I look at it, like, even if you're not working in one of those like life-changing industries, all right, we're pretty fortunate with SThree. Obviously, we do STEM, right? Science,
Yeah,
technology, engineering, math. So there is normally some great benefit, whether it be energy, renewables,
yeah,
etc. Technology is that funny one where it's across all industries and it's in life-changing industries, but then there's also dull stuff like accounting software, right? For example,
Yeah.
it's not really life changing, is it? But for me, I always looked at like the people that I deal with, because yes, they might just be writing software, but particularly in contract, right? I remember meeting someone who got made redundant from one of the big banks, and I met him. I was like, "Do you want to get into contracts?" He's like, "Well, I'm open to contract." I was like, "Cool. Well, listen, I could, I'll try to get you into contracting, but you repair me. You might have to take a little bit of a hit on your rate, all right? But then you can start building that up." And I think I placed him probably 5 or 6 times in a row, all right? And then when I moved into management, one of the consultants who was under me placed him 3, 4 times, etc. Was to work for us maybe 9, 10 times. I can't remember the full stats, but I just love it when like another consultant speaks to him and they'll say, "Oh, is Ryan still there?" And I am, yeah. And like, "Oh yeah, he runs the office now." And like people said, like, "Yeah, I owe that guy a lot because he changed my life."
Oh, that's cool.
His rate has gone up and up, over the time, and now I can obviously see what he's on if he's worth for us and stuff. I'm like really proud that I played a little part in somebody, you know, developing their not like career because it's contracting, but really did develop their lifestyle,
Yeah,
their life that I
100%.
have. And he just writes JavaScript code, right? So and doing it for logistics companies, range of different stuff, digital agencies. It's not that in the hospitals or anything like that, but you can still have an impact on people. And the same with businesses. Like just getting a thank you means a lot for me, or being valued by the customer. Like,
Yeah.
and they know, right, without the people you place, we couldn't have achieved that. That's worth exactly the same as, doing something amazing with technology or developing a new drug. To me, I just
Yeah.
found that just as rewarding as maybe the outcome of what
Yeah.
the people I was placing.
Yeah, that was one of my favorite feelings as a recruiter, like doing contract of having someone that's like, been in the same hospital for many, many years. They're getting quite bored. They want to travel a little bit, and then you place them several times across different hospitals, or maybe they get a contract overseas or something like that. And just getting that text message, that call to say, "Mate, thank you so much. Like my life is so much better," or "I've got more money now. I can do more things with my kids." Like those types of things are phenomenal. And the same thing, like, because I did perm for like 6 years, right? Like a candidate that had been in a company for ages and was just so nervous about moving, and they get that anxiety. I've not interviewed for so long, blah, blah, blah. You prep them the night before, you call them that morning, then they get the job and they're like, "Oh, I can't believe it. I'd never thought I'd get that job. Thank you so much. If it weren't for you, I wouldn't have got that job." And it's like those moments as a recruiter for me, at least, like I loved those moments. Like that's before the money's even been paid and it goes up onto
Yeah,
the screens and stuff. Like that feeling as a recruiter, I miss that. I really, really do love that.
yeah,
So question for you then. So we talked a lot about what makes a good recruiter. Now,
yeah,
I know that there are some people that if you're good at communication, you've got the passion, you're organized, you're great at building relationships, etc. That's good, but I've seen some recruiters that are really, really good at that, but they're still kind of mediocre when it comes to the numbers. So if you're those things, what have you seen people kind of implement, change, and improve on to then still be a good recruiter, but then hit those really like life-changing numbers?
yeah. I think like a bit of a saying, less but better. Normally, that person is maybe still spreading themselves too thin, so niching down and focusing on something. And then the other thing is just that consistency piece. And I think, and that's where if you look like a good biller, they will just do the same things over and over again. And it's almost been that so strong and that having that mindset that even if it's monotonous, I'll still do it because I know it's important. Do you know what I mean? And I would, it's that I would say that it's better to be consistently good than occasionally great. And I think that's what the best billers have. They really do have probably process, and they know how to convert things a lot more. And don't. I think sometimes if you want to be, build good relationships, etc., people can be really scared to push back at times because like they want to break a relationship, etc. So the people who are willing to go, no, well, create that urgency on a job, try and get, if you've got a really, really good candidate, not waiting for the feedback, just listen, why don't you just speak to him and making something happen? And I think that creation of urgency is probably the one
Hmm.
thing, because that time kills deal is obviously another big saying that we use. And that's what the billers do really, really well. They do the basics day in, day out, really consistently, really thorough. Um, and yeah, some people might not be amazing at that other piece, but if you can just do that, that's where I think the good billers really, really do come in their own. And if you get the blend right, then I think that's where the magic happens.
Yeah. I had a guy on the podcast a few months back. He's works for himself now, does like 2 million a year in billings, like insane. It's the first like serious biller I've had on the show. And I
Yeah.
asked him like what do you do like day to day, week to week, like to hit these numbers? And what really struck me, and I was like, oh my God, he was like, it's nothing sexy. Like a lot of people think it's like, right, what tech can I get? And what can I do that's going to be really sexy? He was like, mate, it's fucking boring. He's like, genuinely, every single day I just have minimum expectations, like the minimum
Yeah.
non-negotiables, right? And every day, if I feel really rough that day, I know I've got to have 5 conversations, so I have 5 conversations, right? I
Yeah.
know that I've got to get 5 bits of project insight from candidates. I know I need to get 2 hot candidates to add to this list. I know I need to recycle my leads, etc. So every day, I just do those things. I do those things. I have conversations and I gather information over every call, and that's it. And I remember when he said that, I was like, that just seems too like simple for someone that's billing those kind of numbers. And it was like, mate, go and speak to any like serious biller. They just have non-negotiables that they just hit on a consistent basis. It's like what a lot of recruiters, and I'd be keen to get your opinion on this. I felt guilty of this before. It's like the ADHD shiny red ball syndrome of like, I'm getting bored of this. I'm going to go and do something new and shiny. And it's like, well, actually, the top performers are just sat there silently, just grinding away, doing those things. Like one of the best recruiters I ever worked with, he built his entire desk off spec outs.
Yeah.
He to your point about being very niche, he's done cardiology medtech for 10 plus years. He's
Mm.
only ever done that space, only ever done the DAC market, knows everyone, candidates that he placed 10 years ago, now clients of his, and every single day, ruthlessly, I'd be tapping him on the shoulder, do you want to go Nando's? He'd be so locked in because he needed to get those specs out before lunch. If
Yeah.
he didn't do them before lunch, he'd have lunch at 2. So he was very ruthless with his time.
Yeah. I think that's the thing, because I mean, obviously, take SThree, we have global billers, super billers. I've worked with, I've seen them, but there is lots of different ways to do the job. Like, and I've seen that over time. Like, even one of my most successful consultants did the job in a very different way to what I did. All right, and probably committed to different things, but they worked out. And like, these are just obviously my opinions, of different opinions of SThree,
Mm,
different opinions out there. But I don't that piece of working hard and being accountable to yourself is possibly, for me, that's the most important things,
mm.
because if you got to work hard, but you got to work smart. But I was in an interview yesterday and said this to me: you can't be taught to work hard. It's not really something you can teach, and it's that accountability of, right, I need to do these. I mean, even to this day, I mean, I've got my pad in front of me here, right? I write like 6 things I need to achieve every day. I use this thing called the Ivy League method, and I'm almost like religious. I am religious with it, but that's my way of me being accountable for, at the start of the day, is this what I want to do? I don't have structured hours because I have such a varied calendar now and
Yeah.
different things. But I look at, if I can highlight these things off by the end of the day, this is what I do. And that's kind of like what the great recruiters do. They don't go, England are on tonight. It doesn't matter, but I'll do them tomorrow, because we all know it's not going to happen tomorrow. They go, right, I've got to be out of here at 5 o'clock today, right? Or whatever time it is. I need to achieve these things. They'll be taught to me, and yeah, I love the story of one of the guys in the office. Like, he always has his headset on from like 8 o'clock till half 5, whenever he goes home. And I remember just having a joke, and he goes, yeah, dude, just so know he talks to me, because he's here, he's laser focused. And I do joke about this, but if you have kids, that's the one way to really appreciate your time, right? You're laughing because you know what I'm on about, right? So good recruiters probably have kids nowadays. They just can just focus on, like,
Yeah.
I don't have the time to mess around. When I get home, I don't have time to play catch up. And I was so guilty of that, mate. Like, probably when I first started, I remember we had a table tennis table in the office, and me and one of my pals, like, we'd stay late. In those days, you wouldn't leave before your boss and all that type of stuff. It was long. You'd work longer hours, but then you'd end up playing table tennis for half an hour, and then you'd switch, and then you go back and catch up with stuff. And really, I remember having a worse, like, am I actually working as hard as I can, or am I kidding myself a little bit?
Mm.
And when I realised, like, yeah, you just kind of, you're pretending you are. but you're not.
You see that a lot. You see that a lot with people
Yeah,
that stay late, and then the recruiter will come in the next day and it's like, oh, I was in the office till 8 yesterday. And the one question I used to ask as a manager is like, what did you achieve in the last 3 hours?
yeah,
And they go, oh, well, I spoke to a few candidates. Well, you spoke to a few candidates in 3 hours. But what did you actually achieve? Because there's no point staying late and then bragging about staying late if you've actually not done anything. Towards the end of my career, mate, people used to just joke around and be like, oh, it's 5:30. You leaving? I was like, yeah, I've done what I needed to do today. And by
yeah,
that point, I was kind of checked out of doing. I wanted to get into L&D at that point anyway. But if I wanted to stay later and do more calls and get more candidates and stuff, I probably would have done better numbers and stuff. But I was kind of past that. But I was like really ruthless towards the end of my career because as you can see, I do Thai boxing and stuff. My Thai boxing classes were at like 6:30. I finished
mm,
work at 5:30. It's like it's difficult to get home and then get in the car and then drive to the gym to go and do that. But I was like, I want to do my hobbies. I want to have a life. And the numbers that I'm doing, I'm happy with those numbers. I'm earning a good living and stuff. But what really pisses me off is when I sit down with a recruiter that's like, I want to make 6 figures and, I want to buy a brand new car and all the rest of it. And you're like, you do realize the sacrifice you have to make. Like every top
yeah,
bidder I've sat down and spoken to, mate, you even said it around Monday to Friday. You're just
yeah,
super locked in with work. It's like you can't do all of those things and build those numbers into okay, unless you've been doing the market for such a serious amount of time where you get a client calls you up and you've already got 3 candidates in mind and stuff. But like we're talking about people that are kind of new to the industry, right?
yeah,
You got to be so ruthless with your time, man. You really do.
yeah, yeah. And that's it. And like, I mean, the world has changed now, so you can work from wherever, whatever time, right? But it's been wanting to have to do it. With people, I was sick hearing this story that I speak to, but like back in the day without a laptop, I used to print off every CV of the candidates I spoke to that day. And I used to work at Marks and Spencer's before joining SThree, and I always remember I had a green Marks and Spencer's carrier bag. All right. And I used to take it home full of CVs that I'd spoken in that day. And then I'd sit on my bed before I went to sleep at night. I'd just do some research on my personal laptop on LinkedIn and try and find who potentially the hiring managers were. Right. I don't think many people were doing that, but I wanted to do that. That's the extra that I wanted to put in to try and progress and move quickly. So tomorrow I was really prepped so I could do my 10 manager BDs. I could do all my things because I've got all the information. So I don't have to waste time on that bit.
Mm,
You know, I was just sat there watching the football or whatever. I can do things in the background. Now in the modern world, it's like there's a good thing that you have the opportunity to do that. You can whip out your laptop anywhere and do
yeah.
that. But then there's also that massive distractions of everything else that's going on. LinkedIn scrolling, there's Instagram things popping off all left, right, and centre.
Mm,
And it's about being that really right. Can I be really, really focused?
mm,
Um, and that's what it is. You watch any great biller, they are laser focused.
yeah.
And when they've got like, particularly when they've got a job, it's like treating that every last job, well, every job like it's your last job, right? And it's
Yeah.
like, and we've got to do everything to fill that, whether it's finding that extra candidate, whether it's going to find an extra recommendation for that
Mm,
candidate, whatever it is, they'll really be laser focused and be like, nobody talk to me. I don't
yeah.
know
Yeah.
from one of my team managers, like he was still on the phones when I joined and a job had come in, headset. He was one of the rare people to use a headset, I think, back in the day. Headset was only go, right, nobody speaks to me. All right,
Yeah.
working a job. And then within 2 or 3 days, he'd done the deals, and it's like, cool. But even then, he's like, and I think that's like as managers can make mistakes of that when they're still billing, they go into manager mode and whatever, prioritize things. But if you can
Yeah.
prioritize the right things, then you'll do well.
Yeah, 100%. I used to get told off all the time for putting my noise cancelling headphones on in the office. And my boss would sit down and be like, Charles, like, you can't have your headphones on listening to music in the office. And I was like, yeah, but like, we got told to do day plans. And in my day plan, I had an hour for sourcing. So I was building a project on LinkedIn. And this is pre ADHD diagnosis, right? No one really knew much about it. And I didn't really know anything about it at the time. I knew I kind of had it. And I just said to him, I was like, look, I have noticed when I don't have my headphones on, when I'm not listening to like drum and bass that's kind of getting me locked in the zone, I get really distracted. But the worst thing for you as a leader is I'm the worst distractor. So
Mm,
that if I hear someone talking about the football or the UFC event that's coming up, I will then go, "Oh, yeah, so and so's fighting. Yeah, he's really good." Da, 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 da. And then it takes me so long to get back into the flow. Like most of the people I worked with, if you distract them, they're in the flow immediately. For me, it's like, that my brain couldn't regulate the dopamine, so it took me ages. So we had this little rule, and people were like, "All right, we'll give Charles the exception," because they knew I was a massive distractor. If I had these headphones on, I was sourcing. If I had the headset like you have on, I'm
Yeah.
getting ready to do my calling sprint. And when I became a billing manager, I had to be like extra ruthless with my time of like, right, it's 10 a.m. We've done our 10 before 10. I'm going to source now. If you need anything from me, email me, right?
Mm.
Google it. But if it's absolutely business critical, you need me, tap me on the shoulder. But if it isn't, with respect, fuck off, leave me alone because you know what I'm like and I know what you're like. That we know what we're doing. Let's just crack on. And that's kind of
Yeah.
what worked. Question for you though, before I move on to my next topic, because you mentioned around like you write down the kind of non-negotiables because your days are very varied. One thing I've noticed with myself since setting up our new company and stuff, like doing recruitment for so long, I knew exactly what a day plan would look like for a recruiter. When I train recruiters, I know exactly how to map out their plan for a day. With everything I've got going on, being a dad, being a husband, doing the podcast, doing the AI business, doing the coaching, like sometimes I find like I just almost get a bit like overwhelmed with what the heck am I doing? And I've tried to do day plans before with what I do now, with how varied it is. And then I feel like it just kind of goes up in smoke sometimes. And I'm like,
Yeah.
there must be a better way of doing it. And the reason why I ask you that isn't just purely selfishly, which I'll be honest, a lot of the time on the podcast, it is a selfish, I'm learning myself, but I'm sure there are some recruiters and business owners and managers listening to this that go, do you know what? Actually, yeah, sometimes I do a day plan and I just really struggle to stick with it. Like,
Yeah.
what would you kind of say to me and other people that struggle with just trying to stick to a day plan and like mapping out the day and stuff?
Yeah. I'll give you probably two takes. As a recruit, I think it's a lot easier because your days in your world, you set,
Yeah.
all right, and you probably don't have the people piece. And I actually create like a day plan that's physical, laminated,
Yeah, I
all
did that
right,
in my last
and
company.
then you wipe it off and things. And
Yeah.
people in the office use that, and I really enjoyed that because it's a bit of a game to be. It's there, they can't avoid it. Sometimes it's on your OneNote or whatever. You don't look at how you try and do it in your calendar, and do you really pay attention? I always think having something physical. I'm a massive advocate of pen and paper still because
Yeah.
if you write it down, it happens. I think
Yeah.
that seems to be the case a lot more. It's a bit like if I write down, I'll remember. But if somebody just tells me, my concentration will go. So for me, one thing I would do is always ask yourself at the end of the day, did I stick to my day plan? And if you can build a habit of just sticking to your day plan, that will be a really good thing to do. And just be really mindful of it and just work out why not. But one of the things we got taught, actually, we had some external leadership session come in. And I use this Ivy League method, which, long and short, it is 6 things. I don't know what it is about 6 things, but it's massive to do list that gets longer and longer and longer. It's literally 6 things that you want to achieve. And the idea is that you would start on point one and you don't move on from point one until you get to point two, three, four, five, six. The reality is things happen. All right. And the guys who came in described them as what they call chimp blockers. I don't know whether you heard the chimp paradox.
Yeah. Got
But
got the book somewhere.
you probably got it right. So
Yeah, it's over there. Yeah.
so no matter what your plan is, somebody mentions the football or a candidate calls in
Yeah.
or whatever, and this chimp's going bang, get involved, get involved, for example. So what the hell is like? They called it a chimp blocker, which was simple enough. I'll stick that up. And every time something deferred you away from what you're supposed to do, just write it down and make a note of it. And I just use the same type of principle. So 6 things on the left, line in the middle. Every time something that comes up that somebody asks me to do, if it's a 2 minute thing, just do it, get it out of the way. If not, write it down in your chimp blockers on the right hand side. And then when you get to the end of the day, or you might think, right, I've got 10 minutes actually, I can get rid of those chimp blockers, and that's one out of my brain. You kind of use that as the things that come up throughout the day. And then all you would do is, if you've still got things on that list that you haven't achieved all 6, they just move point 6 and move to point 1 the next day, box that off. And then any other chimp blockers that have come in the way. And that's kind of how I manage it, because planning day to day or hour to hour is really difficult as a leader or even as a business owner, I think, because that email comes in, you've got to give yourself a bit of time to breathe, and that
Yeah.
making sure you don't plan 10 hours of everything to do. And time allocation for me is sometimes tricky because you might start something that takes longer, or you might be able to get through something quicker, or it might change. So I'm not, as a leader, I'm not a massive fan of blocking hours out. I prefer to work on those things, but not having that forever to-do list. It just gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger
Yeah.
and never gets done. It's every day starting out. And I use a diary, so like literally you can see when's the 15th or whatever, bang,
Yeah.
it's on there. So yeah, that's kind of
Yeah.
my process I use.
Yeah, I like that. I did the in my last company because a few of the directors were like really big on day plans. And that's kind of how they built their desks and stuff. And recruiters really struggle because they put it in their diary or they'd be like on the intranet and you just because it's not visual, it's not in front of you, you just ignore it. So I created like a double page day plan. So the day plan was like it was hour blocks or like 1.5 hour blocks with your lunch break and stuff. Then it would have like your non-negotiables, like your minimum expectations
Yeah,
for you that you would set. So, for this sprint, I'm going to do 5 candidate calls. I want to have at least one conversation, blah, blah, blah. And then on the back, it was like a thing of like 10, like my to-do list for the day. And obviously it had 10, but not everyone necessarily had 10 at a time. But I would basically just go around to all the consultants' desk and be like, what's your plan for the day? What's your plan for the morning? What you were going to achieve in those sprints? Because you must have seen this. I'm going to do BD from 2 till 3. What does that mean? Like,
yeah.
what are you
Be
actually doing
specific.
in that?
Yeah.
Yeah, so be
What's the
specific.
audience? Yeah,
Yeah, and
100%.
then on the back it has, and I used to have a color coded thing as well. Like, red is like absolutely urgent, yellow is like somewhat urgent, and green is done or whatever it was. And that helped. That really helped.
Yeah.
Cool. One thing we haven't spoken about, which I'm interested in, because this is something I used to do a lot as well, is using testimonials and proof for business development. I'll be
Mhm.
honest, it's something I'm terrible at now, but I was really good as a recruiter. There seems to be like this thing that I hear from, especially with recruiters, like they feel like it's a bit braggy to post like a testimonial on LinkedIn or, to screenshot like a recommendation from their profile as part of their email outreach and stuff. But it's not, right? Like, talk us a little bit about that because I know you've got some strong opinions on like utilizing that for BD.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be really honest. It's something I was really poor at as well. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's something I was not great as a consultant, and I tried. I suppose it's different because we had like quite a tight network, and I used to like to think that word of mouth got around about, oh, Ryan, he was a good guy. He came and met me. He knows his stuff, etc. But then when I look back at it, like I probably don't have a lot to show for that. And in the modern world where you've got, you know, business development is becoming probably, a challenge for a lot of people. And there's that whole piece of like, I can ring you and tell you that I'm a specialist in Java, or I can show you that I am. And here I can show you because here are all what people who are Java contractors say about me. For example, take my word for it. And that was probably one thing that I learned from one of the top billers at SThree. Like he really got onto the LinkedIn recommendations really
Hmm.
quickly. And he used to have that. And some people did in our office where they'd just like PDF them or whatever and send them and just have that as like that real kind of backup to everything that they say. Saying don't take my word for it. I just think it's like the modern world, right? So if you go book a hotel, the first thing you look at what's your star rating.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just what we do. You go on Amazon, you're trying to buy a new phone charger, right? Which one's the best? You're going to buy a new TV. It's got all that things. I think that's how people can make quick assessments of stuff. And for me, that's how you can really show, like case, same as you mentioned earlier, right? Case studies, like you're this type of company, I've supplied this type of company. We're probably just not very good at capturing it as just as from an industry, really. I feel,
Hmm.
and I just feel sometimes there's a lot of good stuff that goes unnoticed, but undocumented and like not reusable. Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? And I think, yeah, I don't know why. I think a lot of it comes down to, again, it comes down to process. If you're religious in your calendar invite, you're going to think about every day. Right? Is anyone have offered great service today that I can maybe ask for a recommendation or a testimonial, um, and not maybe overthinking it too much.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes, like, that's my thing with LinkedIn recommendations. Like people feel like they've got to write this whiz bang thing. You know what I mean? Whereas if we're reviewing products or something, we make things really simple and easy. Where you just 5 stars, yeah, value for money. Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? I think sometimes we can overthink it within that. Um, but that's how I see, and I tell this story a bit. But you know, I'm a I've been recruiting for maybe 13, 14 years as a sales manager.
Hmm.
All right, I, as rec to recs go, I probably wouldn't have one that I go, right, yeah, this person is amazing because they've done this and they show me that what they've done with people. And I just think like that's the same as like maybe us sometimes and or good recruiters that they build loads of people, but can they prove it other than the billings?
Yeah. Yeah, because I think a lot of recruiters, they think that the immediate thing that comes to mind, the value that they can offer is just a CV that they're specking out to a client, which is quite one dimensional. And that's like what everyone can do is you can go on LinkedIn and find a good profile and do like 5 seconds of research and go, oh, this is a software developer. This job needs someone with 5 years experience. They have 5 years. There you go. That's the value. But if you can do that on top of this is a company in your sector, this is what the manager said. And then it's like a screenshot of the LinkedIn testimonial. That's so powerful. I used to do that as a recruiter and tell recruiters to do it all the time now as part of their email outreach is if you've got a LinkedIn recommendation or if you've got an email from that person, right, and put their picture on it and stuff. Nowadays with AI, like ChatGPT's image creator is so bloody good. You can literally get the email from the client, go, are you cool for me to utilize this for my outreach? Yep, fine, cool. You've got a good relationship. Hey, ChatGPT, brand this in SThree or whatever your company is and make this look really sexy with that person's profile picture and then put that in your email outreach. You know what I mean? And
Yeah,
even when
yeah,
you're speaking to people on the phone, like one a big job that I won last year. I was up against three other trainers. One of them's now my business partner. Sorry, Naz. But the basically the way I won that job is I previously did an academy in Northampton with a company. I called the guy up. My wife was literally about to go into labour, and I was like, "Can you do me a huge favour? Here's the email for the managing director of this company. Can you just email them and just explain like what the process was of doing the academy and how you found it?" He sent the email and never CC'd me in. I was like, what did you actually say to the guy? Mate, it was unbelievable. It was like 3 paragraphs of like how good it was and like the way the training was structured and all the rest of it. The guy then called me that day and was like, by the way, mate, in terms of golden emails, that was the golden email of all
yeah,
golden emails. That was bloody solid. And it was like, we're going to give you this job. Literally, my wife was going into labour that day, so it was like the best news I could possibly imagine.
yeah.
That's like testimonials, mate. Case studies, they work.
Yeah, I mean, we work contracts, right? So we're massive on references, referrals, recommendations, good contracts, no good contracts, etc. And it's the same thing that we do that selling. And we're really good at selling our candidates, all right,
Yeah,
on that basis. But sometimes we forget to use the same tactic with ourselves
yeah,
within that because there isn't a single hiring manager candidate that probably hasn't had a bad experience in recruitment. All right. And I do think that I always remember I was like, used to meet people say, my job is to change your perception of recruiters. And if I can get into that I'm one of the good guys, brilliant. All right. But if you can do shorten that window by not having to prove because you proved it all before and all that history that you've got, then great. And I think, we're very fortunate. We have 40 years history behind us. Yeah. And we've got a great I think we've got some great brand presence in our verticals we work in. So that does carry its weight. But then there's that element of personality and people as well. And people buy
yeah.
from that consultant too. So 100% I would kind of double down on that. And if you can create a good personal brand, that'll help the company as well and vice versa.
Yeah, 100%. Well, look, I'm mindful of time. There's a couple more things I want to get
Yeah.
to. You mentioned there about personal brand. So I've been going back and forth with my business partner about personal branding. He's a little bit more old fashioned. He's only a few years older than me, but he's like, he doesn't like the personal aspect to personal branding. And my argument was always, look, I don't think your content strategy should purely be this was my weekend, do a poll about pasta v pizza, and then on Friday, this is my plans for the weekend. Like I like seeing people's personal updates sometimes, like, they've just had their first child, they got married, or they got back into golf, or, they recovered from an injury. I like seeing that because if I'm going to buy from someone or if I'm going to build a relationship with someone, it's also as well for if I'm cold calling someone and I can see that you've done golf or martial arts or something, it's a talking
Yeah.
point as well, right? It's like an added bit of personality. But I do
Yeah.
think there's a bit of a blend. Obviously, you've been on a bit of a personal branding journey yourself. Talk
Mm.
us through that.
Yeah. I mean, I just, LinkedIn back in my day, I didn't grow up with it. All right.
Hmm.
I'm not even on social media very often. I think I've got profiles, but I don't, I'm not really on it too much. But, I remember, I think, somebody in marketing kind of explaining, right, how important it is and how it can raise. I actually done like some research on like looking at, the like influencers or how people have used their own personal. Look at Elon Musk, right? Look at him as a great example. He
Yeah.
uses his own personal brand to build Tesla, build space. There's loads of examples. Levi Roots are a great one. Like people, that's another one that I put in this session that I did with the guys of like somebody said Levi Roots, you know what we're on about. And it's because
Yeah.
of him. Do you know what I mean? And his sources. So, yeah, I'm with you. Like, there's that whole thing about LinkedIn and it's not Facebook, etc. But I think, yeah, you're right. Better blend. How do you add a bit of value? You know, and I'll be honest, very, very similar to you when people speak to me, and if they've seen my LinkedIn, they'll know with it. Do you play golf? And immediately I'm like, yeah, let's talk golf for a bit.
Yeah,
And,
yeah, yeah.
you know, barriers are down. Like, you probably see my background, massive Leeds fan. Like, so it's like, I don't try to hide. I don't want to hide away from that. Because that's what makes me who I am as well. I've got passion for lots of different things, recruitment, you know, Leeds, golf, kids, all that type of stuff. But yeah, I've got to be honest. Do I think is it absolutely essential? No, because like you probably know, there's some villas that just don't need it.
Yeah.
You know, because they just let their reputation and their business do the talking. So, I think it's become a lot more important. But I wouldn't say it's the be all and the end all. But yeah, that's just kind of
Yeah.
I
would.
have got like a love-hate relationship is how I probably
Yeah.
explain it with it, and I'm sure you're
Yeah.
probably with the same.
I'm the exact same. Like I was talking to my business partner about this. Like my Instagram, I barely post. Like the only stories I ever post is about the football or UFC and maybe
Yeah,
some funny pictures of my daughter doing silly nonsense. Right. LinkedIn for me, like I've like to your point, I've seen top billers just not post on LinkedIn at all, and like you said, they don't need to. Like their reputation is so good, and they got their recommendations on there, and that's fine. I just think that like it just makes it easier, to be honest. It just makes it easier. Like when I first started doing LinkedIn content in what, 2017, when I started to post videos, when people started figuring out videos on LinkedIn, and I started to just post about like personal stuff. Like I was really into like mental health awareness back then, and started talking about my journey with ADHD. And what I realized, mate, is that I was getting on the phone to people, and this is the argument I had the other day. To your point about buying a product, you go on the website, right? You look at the company, you look at the about us, blah blah blah. People do that with your LinkedIn profile, right? So if they look at the
yeah,
LinkedIn profile and it says, SThree 16 years or whatever the company is for however long, and then the bio is I'm a recruitment consultant recruiting in this sector, fine. But then they've also seen the recent posts about you with your kid or playing golf or getting back into the gym or whatever. It's just a talking point, and all of a sudden
yeah,
you go from a corporate persona to a human being, and I just feel like it makes conversation easier.
yeah. I think it's all about humanizing. That's it. Just human. And, you know, I say that to people when like, you know, they might bring a IT director. Yeah, and I'm always like, you know, you've seen it. Mate, you do L&D, right? You'll have people new in the industry like, what do I say to this IT director? It's a scary thing to think. And then if you just go, it's just a person.
Yeah,
Oh, there, she's just a person. And I was like, you know, if they give you a bit of stick, they might just be having a bad day. I have bad days, and I'm a
yeah,
little bit snappy with people
yeah,
sometimes. Yeah, that's just how we are. All right, so don't take everything personally. I was always like, can I find something that could connect with somebody? I had guys who like mountain biking. Never done mountain biking in my life, but I knew that he liked it, so I'd ask him, how's it going? Do you know what I mean? You know, football's an easy one, but there's lots of things, you know. And you know, I was out for tea last night with somebody who had no interest in football, didn't even know when the England match was. But I've connected with him on things like Cord. Like
yeah,
he's built something on Cord, and I'm trying to build stuff on Cord. And it's kind of like there's lots of different ways that you can kind of connect with people. So I think it does help with that. And for me, LinkedIn is all about that, like connections and you know, just almost like expand. It is that the whole thing of like it shouldn't be to scroll through people's personal Facebook, but what it should be is like, all right, that person. And if they tag somebody, they know that person. I've seen that. How do you know him? I'm
yeah.
like, how do you know that person? And then you find out, actually, we are actually connected from it. So, but unless you post or people tag and stuff, you can't see that. So,
Exactly.
uh,
Really, really good example of this, right? So I had this guy on the podcast, and I had no idea because he's never posted about boxing or anything like that. And this was in January, I think. I posted, I think I never posted on a weekend, but I posted on the weekend of just before I started driving back home from the gym, saying that I had been doing a sparring class every Saturday for the last 6 months and how it's kind of changed my outlook on my weekends. Because prior to that, I'd wake up really late and then just be a slob for the weekend because the week has been a bit of a grind. But since I've been doing that, like my weekends were much better. I was actually nicer to my wife because I got all that like aggression out of me in sparring and all the rest of it. We had a call on Monday. He's obviously seen that post, right? He's jumped on the call and he was just like, "Oh, really good to meet you, mate." It was like, "I saw your post about doing sparring every week," and it's like, "I've been doing boxing and I've just started sparring about 3 months ago." It's like, "How long you been doing it for?" Blah blah blah. And he's clocked the gloves behind me. He was like, "Oh, you're a Thai boxer, aren't you?" Like that, and we just started having a bit of a joke around boxing, Thai boxing, and then we spoke a little bit about UFC, and then it was like 10 minutes of like just talking about combat sports, and then we both just like, it gets to the end of their kind of personal chat, we both laughed and went, should we talk about business now? Like, let's
Yeah,
talk. And it was just like we'd never spoken before. It was like a couple of DMs on LinkedIn, shot him a Google Meet, and like it just from that, it felt like we knew each other so much more. So
yeah,
I think just to wrap on that topic, like to your point, I don't think it's a non-negotiable. Depending on your market, I think some markets you should be very present on LinkedIn, but I just think it helps.
yeah.
I just think it helps. It makes
There's
it
that. There's a good saying that I remember watching this in COVID on a TED talk, and like a question of like, does it help or does it hinder? Do you know what I mean? Like that's a question to ask yourself. And like, would it hinder you? I don't think it's going to hinder you. Can it help you? Yeah, but it's not essential. But if you ask yourself that, then I think it does fall more and it's going to help than hinder you in that
yeah.
type of camp.
100%. Cool. Last thing before we wrap up. Something I'm really passionate about is the inconsistent performance we have or we see with recruiters. You always see the classic like yo-yo
Yeah,
performance, right? And it's difficult to get a grip on as a leader, as a billing manager, and even as a recruiter yourself, right? Like you'll see some months you're doing astronomical numbers, and the next month it's like, what the hell is happening here? I'm blanking.
yeah.
If I'm a billing manager, leader, founder listening to this, someone that's had the experience that you've had and worked with the amount of recruiters you have, what kind of strategies, tips, and tricks have you got to help with that sort of those consultant performance issues?
Number one is kind of diagnosing it. Like I think we would always start with like some diagnosis of what trying to get to the root cause of it. And you know what? That could be a multitude of things. It could be something that's going on personally. It could be a falling out of love with the market. It could be that they're just generally not working hard enough and haven't got the vigor to do that. So number one would be like go try and diagnose it, but not just as you maybe see it. There could be lots of other factors around there.
Mm.
Normally if somebody's underperforming, there's some feelings there, and it's kind of like that's okay. Like it's all right to feel like that. And like I've been there. I was an underperformer for probably about a year, I reckon. Like seriously underperformed. So I always put myself how I felt, and sometimes they need a bit of an arm around them, and it's kind of like let's do it together. My number one is if we're going to get you performing, I'm a leader, all right. It's my interest to get you performing. Like there's no recruitment leader that wants people not performing. Like it's just madness, right? So number one, get an agreed plan between you, all
Mm.
right, and that what we're going to do, what we're going to support. 9 times out of the 10, a lot of it will go down to like going back to the basics. They've got a little bit lost along the way, or they're just derailed onto something, or just getting them focused on one thing. But I remember my team manager at the time I was going through. It was like, right, what do you enjoy? Number one, because you're going to want to do more of it. Where have you had success in the past? All right, and double down on those things as a trying to solve everything. What are the one or two, three things that will make the biggest impact? For me, it was working in two verticals, which were
Hmm.
Java and PHP at the time. That's where I'd done my placements. Let's go back and focus on those.
Mm.
All right. And then what do you enjoy doing? Where have you got your buy-in? Well, it's meeting people. So we literally got a list of like 10 candidates I want to meet, 10 clients I want to meet. That's all we're going to do. And they're all going to be within that sphere. So it's like, just do that for most people. Some people might be get back on doing the send outs. Do you know what I mean? Right, let's
Yeah.
do that. Let's do that really well. You
Yeah.
know, um, other people it could be different tactics or whatever, but try not to do too much. Diagnose first, understand, etc. And number one, kind of get an agreement. I think sometimes I always like having like that review point, making sure you've got the review points. Go right, cool. Let's keep reviewing it consistently in that support piece. But number one, like it's always about trying to get people back that spark, that passion,
Yeah.
that flame, that willingness back. Because if they don't have that, you can have the best plan in the world, but if you're not willing to achieve it, then it's going to be really, really difficult. So
Yeah.
that's
Yeah, I
what
think
I
that,
say.
yeah, that's a good point. And I've had this myself, and I've had this with people I've managed and coached where, you have a month where you've got a giant pipeline and unforeseen things that you could have followed the process to a T, and the company goes bust, or there's a new government initiative in, and the roles are no longer live, or things that go kind of out of your control, and you can get bummed out, and that's you're human, right?
Yeah,
Granted that the really top billers, like the really successful recruiters, and this is something that £2 million biller said, that they disassociate, they kind of remove the emotion from it, and it takes a little bit of a while to get to that position. But as a leader, when you're sat there and you've got a young recruiter that is, had a big pipeline and it's gone down to zero, that sometimes that passion and that enthusiasm for the job can kind of dissipate, and then
mm,
that can then foster into a more negative attitude that can then hinder your billings and stuff. So you're absolutely right. It's like getting ahead of that and then kind of reminding them of their why and getting that passion back and going, what do you really like? Like,
yeah,
what can we do to get you back to where you are? And like, sometimes put an arm around them.
yeah. That conversation. Listen, let's go back. Why did you take this job? Why did you put? Why have you committed to this? Right? And the question is, can this job still do this for you? If your answer is yes, let's work together and let's get you back there. That's what I'm here for, right? And that's where I get my joy more than anything is seeing other people achieve great things. And a bit like when your client says thank you, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's nothing better than somebody going, mate, I owe you a lot, right? I want to be here without you. And I feel that about people that I report into. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because they've been with me all the way through my journey. And I think that's it. And it's like just whacking them over the head with a stick. Get to know them. Number one, if you don't know your people, like, then that's a
Yeah.
key thing, isn't it? And I think when people are struggling, that's the time to double down on that.
Yeah.
Within that. And if it is that inputs level, because let's be honest, if you're still not doing enough of your inputs, there's going to be that challenge. But let's work in a way that we can get you
Mm.
inspired to do the inputs, as opposed to just go do a lot of inputs for the
Yeah.
sake of it.
Well, what about if you've got just lastly, what about if you've got a consultant that's just not hitting those inputs? Because I've seen this time and time again, mate, where a recruiter's like, yeah, I know I need to make X amount of calls. I know I need to send X amount of CVs, da da da. And it gets to the end of the week or the end of the day, and they're just consistently not hitting those numbers. And like, you try and understand, like, is this job still for you? It's like, yeah, I still want to be successful. And it's like, but you're not hitting the numbers. Like, are you just lying to me? Like, how do you kind of deal with those people that are just consistently just not hitting numbers without just
Yeah,
saying, I'll fire them?
yeah, yeah. Listen, I always give people a chance. Like, I was giving chances. Doing that. I think it's just a really honest conversation, for me. Again, probably a bit of diagnosis of what's the blocker, what's stopping you. It could be that they've just got into really bad habits or those little things, right? Can we start building these up? If it is like, right, here's a pen highlight, start recording, take some accountability of it. If you need to give somebody that daily accountability, I have people go, who are like, no, I need that. I need you to be on me. All right. But sometimes you're scared to have that conversation. Go, no, so cool. So let's agree then. If you're not where you need to be on a Wednesday, I can give you a little nudge. Yeah.
Mm.
And I'm on top of you. If you want me to check and be on you, then I can be. Um, Again, probably that seek to understand, diagnose a
Yeah.
little bit first. But again, it's that, okay, well, if there's no improvement, do you think that's fair that we have another conversation? But make sure there's a timeline to it as well
Yeah.
within there. But if you can get them to commit to themselves more than you, that's the ultimate piece, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I know difficult one. People have the days you ring 1,000 people and nobody answers, all right? But that comes down to cool. Well, we might need to do a little bit more, or we need to look at why that is.
Yeah. No, 100%. Yeah, it's my biggest pet peeve when I work with people, and like as someone that's external, like it's different because I'm only with them like maybe once a week or something like that.
Yeah,
But sometimes I'll just sit there and ask them the question like, is this actually what you want to do? Like you said to me in the first ever session that you wanted to buy a brand new car or you wanted to do this. Is what you're doing now taking you closer or further away from that goal? And then nine times out of 10, they're like, oh, it's really difficult. And I'm like, look, we can work through the blockers, we can work through the phone anxiety of calling clients and stuff like that. But like the only way you're ever going to get better at anything is by doing it. Like the first rule of confidence, right? Like where does confidence come from? It comes from a proven track record of results. David Goggins talks about this all the time. Like you
yeah,
can sit there, look at yourself in the mirror and go, I'm strong, I'm powerful. But if you've actually not done anything that proves that you're strong and powerful, it's kind of bullshit. And you can do that, and then eventually the results catch up to the whole fake it until you make it type thing. That's fine. But I always say to people like, look, you've just got to like mind my language, you just got to fucking do it. You've just got to do it, get the reps in, and don't be afraid. Like one of the first things I ever got taught when I shifted to perm recruitment is fuck up fast. Like there is no one's going to tell you off for making a mistake. But if you're not making mistakes, you're probably not trying new things. You're not trying hard enough.
Yeah, I always perspective, like, what's the worst that's going to happen? We work in recruitment. We're not saving lives. We're not surgeons. If we make a mistake, nobody's going to die.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
you're not even going to get punched. You might get an F off on the phone, but no one's going to punch you through the phone, are they?
yeah, that's it. But yeah, confidence is key, right? And you can tell, you can feel it's like dogs smell fear. That type of vibe. I think that's the same with candidates and clients, etc. But that's difficult to build up. And yeah, I'm a big James Clear fan of building, habits, and that's a thing. It's just about doing the minute right. Can you just start off right? Let's do that for 10 minutes a day, 5 minutes a day, and just remove any of the blockers that get in the way. So yeah.
100%, mate. Cool. All right. Well, final question I finish every episode with. Following this particular episode, how can people get 1% better in recruitment?
I'm going to just go back to my original point, is find passion for something and double down on it. That's what I would say. If you just want to get that little edge on something, get a passion for something and a bit of an interest. Yeah, I think we talked about maybe a lot of our conversation.
Mate, there's a lot of 1% nuggets in this episode. I'll tell you.
And then maybe just every time you do something good, capture it. That'd be the other thing, right? Don't let it go to waste, because you've worked so hard to get to that point. Can you capture it somewhere?
Love it. Awesome answer, mate. I love that. Yeah, I think passion is underrated. When I first had the concept and idea of Milo, and I spoke to, it was Alex Elliott, and he told me to go and read The Lean Startup, and he basically said that you're going to have a lot of good days, but you're also going to have a lot of bad days. And if you've got passion, they will take you through the bad days. If you don't have passion, those bad days are really bad. So your answer there is solid, mate. Yeah. Cool. Well, look, thank you very much for coming on today. Obviously, you're hiring in your team and you're building something in the background. So just tell people about those things before we wrap up.
Yeah, cool. So yeah, SThree Leeds, we're hiring at the moment. So yeah, we've got multiple kind of gaps on markets. We contract 360 markets that we're looking to build. Yeah, if anybody's interested, drop me a DM and I'll speak to myself, and then we'll kind of get you in the process that we have. And then completely independent of that and any other recruitment company, I am the founder of a company called Recutation, which is, we talked a bit about it here, like testimonials, but it's a platform that helps you gain testimonials easily, and it can do some of the stuff we talked about, like building social images, etc. So yeah, anyone's got any interest in either of those things, drop me a DM.
Love it. Well, I'll put both those things in the description of this video. Again, Ryan, thank you so much. It's been a long time in the making, so I'm grateful that we finally got to do this.
We got there in the end.
We absolutely did, and I've really enjoyed this episode. As I said, there's so many little 1% nuggets in this episode. So, no, really, really thank you very much for coming on. And for people that have made it this far, thank you very much, and we'll see you next week. Thanks so much for tuning into this week's episode. If you enjoyed, make sure that you like this video. If it's on YouTube, drop us a comment. Make sure you're subscribing and following on Apple, Spotify, whatever platform it is that you tune into this podcast. We have been releasing episodes every single Tuesday since September 2024, so super consistent. Couldn't do it without these phenomenal people that come on the show, and of course you that listen and watch every single week. If you or someone that you know are interested, I'm always looking for more people to come on the show, as long as they have got some passion and some value to offer our industry, in hopes that every episode we of course help people get 1% better in recruitment. Then shoot me a DM and we'll get you or whoever it is booked into the show. But thank you again so much for tuning in. Really appreciate all the support, and we'll see you next week.